One specialist told me it was all in my head, I was just making it up.
I didn't think there was any sort of medication out there, and it got to a stage where there was a lot of times that I thought about committing suicide.
With a headache, you can still manage. 9 times out of 10 you can still manage to do things, you can still complete your task. When you get to the point of a migraine, it actually is debilitating in the sense that you can't stand up, you can't think, you just can't do anything, and then you get physically sick.
Well, we try everything. We're off for the magic cure because it's ruining our lives. But it's not just our lives it's ruining the lives around us.
Going to the doctors with Tanika was really frustrating, even though we'd like emphasise, maybe it's migraines. My husband gets migraines as well. Yeah, they just kind of didn't seem to take any notice of it, and what did they say, just try not to worry too much about your VCE and just relax and things like that. And it was like, well, I think it's just a little bit more than that, but they just still wouldn't listen. We went to one doctor who kind of took us a bit more seriously, and he started trying her on a few different drugs and things like that, but there wasn't any follow through or anything like that, and so we were kind of left with no option of where to go next and things like that, and so we didn't really know who to go to,
Some teachers, they just didn't care. They just wanted me to do the work, and I couldn't do the work. And friends as well, because they never experienced a migraine, they just assumed it was a headache. I think that's what made it really hard. It's just the only people who understood were my family, and no matter how many times I tried to explain it to my friends, it just went over their heads.
With Tanika, it's not just a headache either, like it's, she's got the pains in her head and things, but she also has daily nausea and things like that, and when she had her migraines, she'd come to me in the middle of the night crying and things like that, but I couldn't do anything, because I couldn't even touch her because that was painful. So as a parent, you just want to give your children all the support that you can, and I try to, but oh God, sorry, yeah, it's just really difficult. I didn't know who to turn to or how to get help for her and things like that, and getting people to listen and understand that, she wants to be at school, she wants to achieve the best that she can, but she couldn't just because of her circumstances, and the fact that I couldn't help her, I couldn't take the pain away. It's really difficult, really hard.
Feels like you're just continually banging your head on a really hard object, and it just won't stop. It just lasts for hours or sometimes even days. I got some that lasted for about 2 or 3 days and it just wouldn't go away. So I just felt really down. I got a bit depressed because of it, because I couldn't do anything and I wanted to do everything, but I just couldn't move. If I try and tell someone, they're just not going to understand. So I'm like, what's the point of talking to someone about it? And it's just really frustrating and sometimes a bit lonely. Just having medical professionals tell me I'm making it up, it's just such a slap in the face.
Yeah.
You're a teenager, you don't know anything. You're just going through life. You don't know anything about life. You don't know what real pain is. I'm like, I really do know what pain is.
I've been in and out of hospitals, seen many neurologists. I've been diagnosed with epilepsy to complex migraine to stroke, a person suffering from a stroke. It's hasn't been definite because my symptoms could be either. It's just been a non-stop about my condition. And still today, I've got no idea what I have. So it's confusing, okay? If I go to my doctor, annually I go to my GP and I get a blood test and I go to assess my weight and everything in order to see, okay, there's nothing wrong with me. And my bill of health is impeccable, okay? So, no, it's not easy to find out information about my condition because I don't know what my condition is. I love my garden. What I do, I spend a lot. In terms of what's taken away from me is my ability to show the world that I can do this and much more, okay? Because if I wanted to push harder at my objectives and my ambitions, there will always be this shadow about, to what extent is she pushing herself too hard, and that is why she's actually having an epileptic fit or a mini stroke. It makes it difficult. It just makes it, it's always in your head. You want to be yourself, but it's always, you're conscious about, am I feeling okay? Is it really a headache or no, maybe something else? I need my fresh air and my greens.
Recently in March 2017, I got an onset of a migraine, and within about 30 seconds just a hot flush went through my body and I collapsed in a lift, passed out in the lift, so that was by far, smashed the back of my head. So it's been pretty much by far the scariest so far. When I was in my early 20s, I seen a neurologist in Footscray for about 2 years. So he treated me just different medications. So I went to him for 2 years on different medications each month. So he'd walk in, prescribe me with medication, try that for a month, didn't work, try another medication. So that didn't work, and I just started living with the thought that migraines were going to be a part of my life forever. I haven't been on a holiday for about 20 years now. We did go on holidays in the earlier days, but I'd spend half of my time in bed suffering from migraine, so it's gotten to the stage now we just haven't been on a holiday for years. So I don't really get to play with my granddaughter. I have a grandchild. She keeps saying, oh, what's wrong with Grandpa? He doesn't really want to talk to me. I just go up to my room sometimes. No one's ever really come with a proper answer why. So for myself, I'm lost for words. How or why we get migraines is all I know is that it's probably the worst pain that I've ever had in my life, and it's just ruined my life.
There was a study that was done in Mayo Clinic catchment area a few years back where they surveyed the close to 2,000 chronic migraine sufferers, and they asked two simple questions. How many patients with a diagnosis of migraine do actually get a diagnosis as migraine? And also very simple advice what to do with an acute attack of headache or other neurological symptoms, and what to do in relation to prevention. The shocking answer was this number was somewhere around less than 5%. Less than 5% of them would walk away with a diagnosis of their medical disorder that is contributing to a lot of disability, and two simple advice what to do when they get an acute episode of symptom, and what to do when it comes to prevention. In other words, 95% of these patients would not get these two simple solutions, at least the minimum standard of care, if you like.
In Taekwondo or any martial arts or any activity that's quite physical, there is always the tendency to end up with some kind of injury. I've broken both my feet, I've broken my hands, I've even broken my nose through sparring because it's full contact, things like that. And people always say, okay, well, how is your back going, or things like that. The funny thing is that what's giving me a lot of grief is the migraines or the headaches, and nobody sort of seems to be, when you talk to people and explain about headaches, there's only a very small number of people that understand what you're going through, and they're the ones usually that either they suffer from headaches or they have a family member that suffers from headaches. But most people will sort of say, well, it's just a headache, why can't you keep on going? Why can't you keep on doing what you're doing? Through the migraines and through the effect of my lower back, I haven't been able to function or work at the level that I want to, so then it becomes a budgetary problem as well. Because I can't generate the income that I would like to, the medications have become very expensive, and I've had to sort of be very smart and careful about how and when I take the medications as well, rather than just sort of say, okay, well, I can take them all the time.
There's a tendency to self-medicate, particularly with painkillers, just so that they can get to the next meeting or to the next appointment or the next soccer game. This often leads to a very vicious cycle of ongoing headaches and migraines. And the unfortunate truth is that the problem becomes a vicious cycle and is not one that usually just resolves on its own. They need to take a very active role in their self-care and get treatment for their migraines.
Headache disorders and migraine are actually the leading cause of disability in most countries, and this is indeed the case in Australia. The estimated number of migraine sufferers in Australia is just over 5 million, so it is a huge burden in this country. The difficulty is, if you look at the public hospital funding and university funding and funding support that we had from national funding bodies such as NHMRC, when it comes to headache disorders, it is either nil or hardly any. So there is a huge discrepancy. On one hand, we have this disorder which is causing huge amount of burden, crippling the health of fellow Australians. And on the other hand, we put very little money to find answers to solve this problem.
I decided to stop working mainly because in March when I did collapse, I was still getting a lot of dizzy spells when I'm getting migraines now. So I could be out shopping or walking in the park. If I get an onset of a migraine and start feeling like I'm going to pass out within a couple of seconds, I just go to the ground so I don't pass out and smash my head. With the work side of it, I've always worked. I led to believe that, I was probably brought up that we do have to work to achieve what we want in life, and obviously, you've got a wife and kids and you want a house and everything else, so I was the main breadwinner. I've only ever had 4 jobs in my life, so I've always stayed at most of them for a long period of time, but it was just getting too dangerous with collapsing at work and feeling that way now. I just feel I can't work. It's not that I don't want to work, because I've always worked. I've enjoyed working. To get on a disability pension of any type, you have to have a rating of 20. They see chronic migraine sufferers, well, from what I'm led to believe, it's not on their list of disability. You have to have a score of 20, and I rated a 5 with all of the evidence that I submitted to them. Their idea is now to try and just get me back to work, which, at my age, having so much time off work and not knowing when you're going to get a migraine, I could be at a new job for an hour, I could not even turn up, so who's going to want to employ me?
The quality of my work hasn't slipped. It might be a little bit slower, only because the cognition's not firing on all cylinders. But I actually get praised for my work, and the level of the work is actually just as high. And I tend to be a fast worker anyway, so it tends to even out. But unfortunately, because I do tend to have some days off or whatever, I had to be let go because I couldn't work full time as such, because I wasn't there all the time. And so somebody else got my job. I was told basically that it was a Thursday before Easter, that on the Tuesday someone new would be starting to take my job. And because I was a contractor, there was not much I could do about it.
There is a huge economic impact of migraine worldwide, Australia in particular, with just more than 5 million migraine sufferers in this country, majority of them being working class people. There would be significant hidden cost as well as non-hidden cost. There would be cost of frequent hospitalization. There would be costs of frequent visits to doctors. This becomes even more worse as there is this strong stigma against migraine and headache disorders, even in the medical community. On one hand, the most doctors believe that this is a very simple headache and nothing serious, but on the other hand, these are serious complex neurological disorders that consume a lot of the doctor's time to take histories, examine and trying to resolve problems. So the cost of migraine to this country, although we have not studied this formally, would be in the realm of trillions. Therefore, the supporting proper migraine care programs and supporting translational research would definitely benefit the policymakers very rapidly compared to other disorders.
I'm a professional, I'm an accounting manager, and I do have a job that is high responsibility. It's stressful, but I like my job, I love my job. I like the stress that comes with the job. And the first thing I hear is like, you're stressing too much. Work is just too heavy, that's what is causing you, you're not able to handle that stress, hence you having these episodes. But I don't believe it's that. I think it's something, and it was just such a bad timing because I had my annual review. So I even mentioned the fact that, I'm due for, not a pay rise, but a promotion. And he goes, but, that comes with extra responsibilities, and beware of what you wish for, because, if you pretty much, I'm just rephrasing, but saying, you can't handle this stress, how can you handle a promotion, or, what comes with it? So it is quite frustrating.
The most pervasive and damaging myth or misperception is that it's not, in fact, a real medical disorder. Migraine is very much a bona fide medical disorder that we have a pretty good understanding of in terms of its pathophysiology. There's a perception that it's a psychological disorder and that it relates more to stress or anxiety or mood, and if people could just cope a little bit better, then they wouldn't be suffering so much. But that's absolutely not the case. It is a true medical disorder, and there are numerous different sorts of treatments that are available for it.
The fact that the disability is not visible in these patients make this even more worse. In other words, you might have a lot of workers rocking up to work while their brain is actually sick, while their brain is performing at 10%, 15%, 5% at their working place. In fact, the recently concluded American Academy of Neurology meeting, I saw a presentation from Mayo Clinic again. What they did was they went to study a bunch of doctors who were working in Mayo Clinic as part of their research project, and they looked at how they perform when they are having an episode or symptom collection of migraine while they are working, and also when they are not working. In their study, if I remember correctly, found out that there was about close to 7-second delay of response time to the computer task that they were doing as part of the study when they were going through an acute symptom episode of migraine. So put this into perspective. This may be a cardiologist who is going to do an angioplasty on one of the patients. Although you might believe that 6 second, 7-second delay is not a big deal, it might contribute to life and death for a patient that this particular cardiologist is going to treat.
When I first started getting them, my daughter was 5, my son was 7, so my children have actually grown up with me having migraines all their life, basically.
Yeah, and as a family, you have to work around that sort of thing, you know. And we all really felt bad for Marilyn because she was usually in a bed in a dark room, and you know, and the kids really did suffer for it. But we all worked around it, you know, and Marilyn kept on going back to the local GPs and that, and getting different medications to help her out, and you know, so we carried on with his sports, and I think Marilyn was very brave in doing that sort of thing. You know, sometimes she wouldn't even remember the day before, well, when we went to this, you know, different things with our children, and she just wouldn't remember what happened. That's how severe they were.
Migraine is much more common in women. It's 3 times as common in women as it is in men. This is primarily because of the relationship between estrogen and migraines. Many women have migraines that are triggered by fluctuations in estrogen, and this accounts for the pattern of migraines that occurs at various stages of the reproductive cycle.
Well, I'm looking after my 17-year-old son who has autism. I'm the sole parent and sole provider for him. I'm looking after my 76-year-old father who has Parkinson's disease. I'm the primary contact for my mother who has Alzheimer's and is in a nursing home. So every day I go and I cook for everybody and I look after everybody. And I'm also trying to get a job, and yeah, it doesn't always fit into the same day. I try my best.
When I say that I have migraines for 15 or 16 days a month, for the rest of those days I don't have a normal feeling day. It's just every day is a weird feeling day for me. I haven't had a good day for many years. What I would call a normal day I have not had for, I reckon, 20 years.
I have patients of mine whose brain gets sick few hours to few days prior to get their headache. And then they would go through the headache phase, and then after headache phase they would have few days, sometimes even more longer, which we categorize as post-drome after the illness that contribute to a lot of agony also. This may include severe nausea or trouble tolerating light or disorientation, not being able to perform their daily life.
found a doctor who my mum works with.
Yeah, which is
and they set up an appointment, and I still didn't try to expect much. Like I was just like, oh, just gonna happen again. And when we got there, he like did some tests and like did blood work and everything, and then went back a few weeks later, and he diagnosed me with chronic migraines and a little bit of depression and anxiety, and I cried at home.
That's amazing because he just listened.
And just when he was
Just,
telling me, I just started tearing up because I was like, finally, I know. Like I knew, but now I have it.
To have that
officially.
diagnosis, I think, made a big impact. Like
It took 5 years to say, you have migraines. It's just such a good feeling to know and actually have someone who listened and
ask lots of questions.
yeah, and get me on the right medication to help me. And also found out I was diagnosed with medication overuse because I was using stuff that helped, but it didn't really help me. It actually kind of made them a bit worse.
Really, the key features of medication overuse headache are a headache that is present most days, so more often than not, and it's associated with the use of acute medications like codeine-containing medications or sometimes triptans most days. So more than 10 days a month for codeine, more than 15 days a month for other simple medications. And the typical features that go with medication overuse headache are that it's a headache that's evolved from migraine but is no longer responding as well as we would like to standard migraine treatments. It's certainly true that it may not be easy to identify medication overuse headache, and one good way of doing it is for the patient to keep a diary which indicates exactly how often their headaches are occurring, but also indicates how often they're using medication. Another way for doctors to help is to ask how often headaches are occurring, but I actually find one of the best ways is to ask how many days in a month are crystal clear. That means no headache, no need for medication, and it's often a surprising thing that patients will say, well, I'm getting maybe 8 bad days of headache a month, but then they're actually getting milder headaches on another 10, 15 days per month, for which they're taking painkillers of one sort or another, and the painkillers improve things to a degree, so they don't count that as a headache day. So I think it's really important to ask the question in different ways and to really be alert to the possibility that there may be medication overuse that's contributing to the pattern of frequency of the headache.
So you're happy with the way that your headaches are going?
Yes, yes. The migraine diary actually brought home to me how severe they were and how often I was getting them. It's just kind of having control of my life again. My headaches are still kind of controlling them still, but not to the severity I had years and years ago. I'm not there yet. And sometimes with a neurologist in the headache clinic, we have to tweak the medication that I'm on. So it's always a learning, no matter what you do, because your life changes as you go through, your body changes, the environment changes. So as we go through, I'm always open to trying.
I've recently, in January 2018, I went back to a neurologist, hopefully to trial new drugs and some type of medication in the hope that there is a cure for migraine, or even to bring down the amount of time that I do get migraines from. They're on average 15 a month. So if I could get them down to 5 a month, I'd be happy. But as yet, no medication's working so far. But I tend to stick with it as much as I can in the hope that there will be some sort of medication.
We're living in an age when there are new drugs appearing to help in the treatment of migraine. We've had a number of new drugs emerge in recent times. We've probably got 10 or 12 different medications that are tablets, that are migraine preventives. We have Botox, which is used for people with very frequent migraine, and that's made a huge difference to the lives of many patients with very frequent migraine. And so I think we're living in exciting times. There are treatments available. There are good treatments available now, and there will be even better treatments available in the future.
We are just in the process of moving into this very exciting era where we are exposing ourselves to two main modalities of treatment. One area is a particular molecule known as CGRP, which is a 39 amino acid molecule, which is heavily involved in generation of headache and other constellation of symptoms in migraine. We now have a very good mechanism either to mop up this chemical away from the brain or to block where this chemical acts on the receptor or the keyhole for this molecule in human brain. We also have another very exciting way of looking at human brain, specifically in headache disorders, migraine in particular, where we can use electrical stimulation, which we describe as neuromodulation. In other words, we go and change the electrical activity of the brain using reasonably simple devices that people use outside their scalp. So these two modalities are probably going to change the game of how we deal with these headache disorders. I think this is the most exciting time to be involved in headache care and neurology in particular, and also the migraine for that matter.
It's changing.
It's nice to know that there are people out there who are trying to help us. If there's something new coming on, I'll try it.
And if we can give information to doctors and they can give information to us, it all helps.
We are moving into treatment or therapeutic era of neurology. Migraine is also the same. So therefore, when things are rapidly changing, we have to educate ourselves almost on a daily basis. We have to educate others also, and we have to learn from one another as well. So in that way, new changes that we learn, we bring to the clinic. New changes that we learn, we bring to our hospitals. New changes that we learn, we bring to the emergency department. We share that with primary care physicians. We share that with patients. And we make decisions together, patients and doctors, empowering each other, empowering patients in particular. And in that way, we can build a better world to live well with these disabling disorders, live well with migraine. Yes, it is still early days. From CGRP products, we have about 10,000 patients that we treated worldwide on the basis of clinical trials. The most exciting thing is every research paper that I read coming out of these studies are telling me that side effects are either nil or hardly any.
There is always light at the end of a tunnel. There's a lot of hope out there, and never give up. Just never give up. Just keep up the treatments and work with your doctors. Just hang in there. That's all I can say.